Welcome to CQC Newcastle, the Creative Question Challenge. I'm Matthew McFarlane and I'll be catalyst for this session. Ruli Zakaria is our visualizer. He's a Newcastle-based creative and he'll be visualizer for today's discussion. Our participants are Darryn McKenny and Rewa Wright. Darryn McKenny is the founding director of the Miramar Aboriginal Language and Technology Centre here in Newcastle. He was born and raised on Awabakal country and acknowledges his traditional ties to the Gamilaroi and Wiradjuri nations. Thanks for being with us today, Darryn.
Thank you.
And Rewa Wright is a New Zealand Māori from the Ngāpuhi e Te Uri o Ho Iwi. She has recently moved to Newcastle and is a lecturer in creative technology in the School of Creative Industries and a member of FASTLab. Thanks, Rewa, for being with us today.
Kia ora, Matt.
So ecology, the study of relationships between living organisms and their physical environment. And today we're talking about re-indigenising ecology. So Rewa, if I can start by addressing this question to you, what role can art and technology play on this topic of re-indigenising ecology?
Well, firstly, mihi atu kia kōrua. Thank you to you both for being here with me today to share in this conversation. You know, I think you did really well with the introductions there, Matt, because Te Reo Māori is complicated.
It's tricky.
Yeah, so I'm from Ngāpuhi and the Te Uri o Ho Hapu of the northern part of Aotearoa, New Zealand. You know, I've grown up around the land. I actually grew up on near a Wāhi tapu site, which is a sacred ancient pa site. So I've had a lot to do with the land over the years. I've always grown plants, sown plants, and that's informed my art practice, and that's informed my approach to technology as well. So I work actually with plants in my technology art. So I take the bioelectrical signals from plants and I actually choreograph dance and music with them. So I have, I guess you'd call it an interspecies approach, but it's actually fundamentally an Indigenous approach that comes out of my Māori heritage, because we consider that the land, the plants, the animals, all of the creatures on the earth are all connected to us as humans. Humans aren't at the centre of this ecosystem, right? It's a network, it's a web, and we're just one small part. So that's how I consider myself in relation to nature and ecology, but that is also how I think of myself with technology, right? Because now we're able to digitize our bodies, we're able to put our bodies in all these virtual spaces, we're beaming live to the world with this conversation, right? And that's only possible with technology as sophisticated as it is today. So how art comes into that, it's a fundamental urge that we still have as humans and as Indigenous people. We've never lost that desire to make art. We've never lost that connection with art. So that's how I draw my art making practice into technology, is actually via nature. Yeah.
Lovely. Can you expand on that, Darryn, from your perspective?
Like when you say the word ecology as an example in my world, I've only been saying it for the last year or two. It's like these sciences which do exist are outside what we're learning. Like my work's about language, bringing back languages, wanting to speak languages once again, and then the journey which I've been on has been realising that language is all around us. Everything makes a noise and somehow, and it's how we interpret that and then how we learn from that and share for that. Our animals speak to us, our plants speak to us, our plants speak to the animals. Yes, the animals are listening. Yeah. Everyone's listening in that there, but all of these things is that we're only just using these new terms today. You know, like when you say the word art, that's a new term which is actually really only being used for that for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
And we will still then have our interpretations of those words, of what they mean to us, but we will still use, you know, like you say the word art,
Yes.
but a non-Indigenous person, if they say the word art, it's two different things.
Yes, yes.
And
Yeah,
it's-
they mean gallery-based fine
Yeah, it's
art.
yeah. Oh, it's an art show, and and it's like
Yeah.
So it's sometimes we've got to use these terms to help loosely try and transmit the message which we're trying to portray, so it can be
Yes.
quickly get to the point. Because our connections with stuff, and seriously, I'm not even at the tip of starting to learn it still, is just so far deeper than what we could ever really understand, and with so much happening around us. So it's, did that add to that, I think?
Yes, it
It
did.
really did, yeah.
It did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it sure did.
So Darryn, what do you think about this idea of using technology to sense the world?
Okay, so one, we've got to define technology. Like for me in the language world, technology is pen and paper. Technology is, the finger moving around in the sand. That is a form of transmission. It's how we're using that and how we take that, and it's all the different things around it. Today, if you're saying digital technology, that's another thing again. It's a totally different thing again there. And one thing for me personally, Bud, is that technology is a leveler. That when we can, if we get empowered with the use of technology, we don't necessarily need to have the academic qualifications and training and his experiences on that, okay? But if we have the tools provided to us, and when it comes to our Indigenous landscaping, whatever that may be, technology is a real big leveler with that. And I've been for it, and I've been using it for 20 years to empower our people, Indigenous people, Native people, everywhere, in regards to our languages. And our languages, it's not that they're using it for our languages, it's actually they're using it for our knowledge systems. It's just that we use language as that front bit to understand. So all for technology, as long as we're using it, not someone, I don't know, using it on us, because a lot of time that's happened.
And that's a real problem, the idea that technology is being used on us, and we don't even know about it, we don't have a choice. For example, with AI right now is actually becoming this space, and I'm thinking in terms of racial profiling, right? And that's affecting Indigenous people, people of colour all around the world right now. So it's about we can use technology to empower ourselves, but it shouldn't be used on us as something to oppress.
And it's something that I've found, like I've been trying to talk to the likes of Microsoft and Apple and Google, for over a decade now, and saying that we don't want to be the last to access the new technology, because by the time we get it at our end in our world, there's already 2 or 3 other generations of technology sitting above that's already come out since, and we always find in our world we're the last ones to get access to, if you could say, the latest digital stuff. And that is one thing which doesn't help us, is that we should be being prioritised, because when you're talking about ecology, it's like, for me, that's just everything. As soon as I walk outside, and we should be at the forefront of having the access to this and being the creators of this, and then let us empower others with how it should be. As our people, not me personally, but our people have been the world experts of understanding and caring for this world which we all live in, way before anyone else. It's like I was saying that I was saying to someone the other day, what year is it, Matt?
They're calling it 2020.
They're calling it 2020. Well, us mob here on this big island, I don't know what you call it over on your island, but us mob, we could be, the year 75,020. When you think of it like that, okay, so give it to the people who should be getting it first, because the biggest issue which is in front of us right at this moment is out there in that world, and that's that.
Yes.
Not the concrete and whether we can put two steel beams together and they don't fall over and no one falls, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so Rewa, with your work, and you've got the connection of music and art and dance. How does that work with the greater ecology? I'm a little curious about that.
Oh yeah, well I suppose I came into music really early in life. One of my grandmothers was actually Welsh. So one grandmother's Māori, one grandmother's Welsh. And the Welsh have beautiful voices, and she was extremely good at music. So I learned probably actually to play music before I could write.
Okay.
Yeah, so I couldn't write properly probably till I was about 6, but I could write music at 5 and play music at 5. So it came very early for me. Then the dance, of course, with that. I got involved with kapahaka, which is the Māori type of dance. You've probably seen it on all the concert parties, and through that. So I suppose that's really the way that it all connects together. But I also, because I'm from a background where I lived on the land really early, we were always propagating plants, taking seeds, keeping them season after season, propagating those seeds, taking cuttings, propagating the cuttings, that kind of thing. So I suppose it's like a lot of things, it comes back to what you had early in your life, and then as you become an adult, it just sort of unfolds, doesn't it? So I suppose my first experience is, even though now I do use technology to sense what plants are doing with their signals, it actually also comes from that early tuning in to the plants and the environment, right?
Yeah.
Because long before, without the technology, and I take your point, Darryn, on how technology can kind of mediate and create like a layer between the person and the world, right? Like, it's important to have that direct connection, and I think that's something all of our Indigenous ancestors had, the direct connection with nature, and they were sensing nature using their minds, their intellect, their physical senses, touching the ground with their feet as they walked, right? And that's a really powerful force, and that's something which I think I still feel that a little bit today, in my own way.
So how do we go about fostering that connection in our current society? What do we do to re-indigenise as such, like to bring about that sense of connectedness?
Tune into the nature around us.
Yeah, and it's but like for us, like for me personally, it's hard for so much of our people here living on the east coast of Australia, because our access and ability to be still caring for country is not there in the manner that we would all want it to be, or what it actually should be. And because that connection has been removed and is not constant how it should be, we can also but be losing that connection which we should be having. And it's if we can reverse that, things just come naturally.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you just talked about care for country, and so it's a bit tricky, I guess, when we're all in houses or the bitumen roads, but care for country, just that. Can you let us know a little bit more about what that means?
It's an easy 3 words, and it's been used for quite a while, and but it's pretty I love the term because it's like caring is it's in itself is so deep in many ways. Looking after, helping something thrive, but you're also protecting. Yeah. And I think what's important about it is that it's not like it really does separate the difference between which some people can think that we own country. It's no, it's that we don't own country. We need to be but in that position to continue to care for that country. That's what we're constantly seeking. And big difference there between that. And that's why caring for country for me, just quickly for our conversation is so important. And It
really is. And Darryn, you were talking to me the other day about, we were talking about the fires, right? And the different processes of burning between the cool burn and the hot burn.
I was sad to see on our local news the other night, on Saturday night, that everyone was excited that hazard reduction burns were happening here, but the flames were just travelling way up into the canopy, and that was wrong. That was just with a big gas torch and light it all up, and it's not the way. It's fire and water both do the same things. They're just it's not that water is used to put fire out at all. It's like water helps things thrive, and it's beautiful when it hits the ground after the first fires have come through, those right cool burns, and they both equal in looking after, and it's a Western mindset of the fear of the word for fire, and our people never feared fire. That's something which never existed in our world. It's not that fear never existed there. It was our friend. Our birds would fly, pick it up, fire, and they would be putting fire in places there and helping it because they know it's what allows everything to thrive.
And this Rewa is in Maori culture. The concept of care for country is pretty strong there as well.
Yeah, it is. We call it kaitiakitanga, which is actually a very similar concept, right? It's the idea that we don't own the land, it's not ours to own, because actually it's our whanaunga, it's our relative, right? We're genetically linked to the land, so how can you own your relative, right? Think of it that way.
Owning your mum.
It's like owning your mum, right? You don't own your mum. Good analogy. Yeah, well, the earth is actually called Papatuanuku, which is mother. Right? And this is the thing, is that you care for your mother, you love your mother, you don't own her. So this is the idea is nurturing, loving, sharing, and not using it as a thing that you just extract resources from, that you take from, you have to give back. Give back and care.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our it's our secret of survival.
Yes,
that
is so true.
And it's a pretty easy thing to do when you think,
Yes, but people have become disconnected, right? And Matt, you just mentioned with all this bitumen and these roads and, these cities that we have. I think that people have really become disconnected from the countries that they're in all around the world, okay? It's not just a problem in Aotearoa or in Australia, but it's all around the world. People have become disconnected from nature, and it is really difficult to think about how you might try and help people tune back in and listen back in. I don't know the answer to that question.
It's a big one. It's big, but
big.
I guess the art practices and showing that the connections exist would be an important step in the educating of our society. Do you see yourselves as educators in our society?
It's the thing which Indigenous people can do to at least put a carrot in front of someone to get them to maybe go that little bit further and seek it out, or understanding in that there. And when you get someone to buy, and then you can. That's what I love about it. Again, because it is a teacher It's our form of teaching, if you could say, in this modern world. In that respect, they are.
Yes.
And if it's whether it's and that teaching is educating people that wow, our environment matters, and if we've got to use whatever form to do that.
Yes, yes. It's interesting, this issue of educating, right? So I don't consider myself to be an Indigenous educator because I don't have that knowledge background, right? I'm not an expert in te reo Māori. I know a lot of people who are. They're generally older than me. They tend to be 60s, 70s, 80s, right? So they have the knowledge to pass on. I have some really good friends. My friend Tiopura is a language expert. I call on him a lot, you know. But for myself, I don't consider myself an educator in the Indigenous sense, but yes, I am in the art technology sense. So at the University of Newcastle, I'm a lecturer in creative technology. So yeah, so I'm an educator in the Western sense, if that makes sense, but not in the Indigenous sense. Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, just while you were talking and I was just like thinking, it's just like, you know, we've got this place nearby called Glenrock Lagoon, and you'll get, on the weekend, you'll get hundreds of people walking through there, parents and children, and it's like, and I go through there myself and that they are, and like, I was out bush a couple of days ago and I heard about your work with plants and listening to them because they're speaking, and I'm like, oh, when I'm walking through, I don't want to break a branch because I don't want to get yelled at by the tree or whatever there. And but it's also like for us, everything's living, everything's animate, if that's the word. Like the stones, the rocks, you don't pick them up and throw them. It was there, that's where it should be, but you're hurting something and everything around, and it's, and I think there's all sorts of different messages that through the art, because it's got the ability to attract attention at the moment, and that's, we've got to use everything to get messages across.
Wow, yeah, exactly, good point.
Okay, so this care for country it's an old idea, and it's everywhere, but it's sort of seems to be lost with our colonial ownership way of that we're trapped in here in this society. So, what would our local mission here in Newcastle as Novocastrians, what could we do to instigate this change back towards a care for country philosophy here in the town?
I feel like that's one for you.
Well, I'll upset a lot of people, right? No, but look, here we are in Newcastle, the second oldest town in Australia. You've got the place where things were starting to be built. Back at the beginning, there's development here like nothing else. It's, it is a city as far as Australia goes, not in world terms, but it is a city here. It is big. We're surrounded by one of the most beautiful lakes, saltwater gatherings in the world. They are the mountain range which is around us, and the thing is we're just going to let it all go. If we don't stop and think, because other people's priorities for industry and housing and the ownership of property, we're on the cusp of losing a lot on our doorstep, and I don't know what their answer is at the moment. It's sad.
It is potentially very frightening, particularly with the large scale of the mining industry in the valley, and the possibilities of the gas extraction out to sea. Yep. Sort of gearing up at a time when it seems there's a groundswell of people wanting to get back to these ideas that we're talking about today. Yeah, like our mindset's wrong. And I'll say that can be even Indigenous mindset too. Our voice is not as big as what it can be. Like I'll watch the humpback whales on the northern migration come up here, 200, 100 metres, 50 metres off our coast. And as soon as they hit our port, they are jumping in the air, breaching, letting everyone know, hey, we're coming through. We're coming through. The ships are coming in and out of the port. They think they're the ones who got right away. Mm-hmm. Wrong.
We should be slowing our ships down. There should be something in place there to be able to say, hey, there's, like, just that, like, the environment clashing with industry. It's the environment which is wrong. It's the industry which is supposedly right, and that is why it's not working. It's I don't know if that was explainable in that, but yeah, it's
So I'm with you 100% on this.
Yeah, me too.
So we've got a mindset that needs changing, shall we say? Rewa, how are we going to do that with art practice?
Yes, get out there, plant a tree,
Mm-hmm.
start a garden, start a community group to plant trees, make gardens, care for animals. You know, connect with the environment, connect with nature, and that's when you'll start to prioritise nature over the industry, right? Because people will have that feeling within them that nature is more important, you know, and that's the thing to foster, because some people don't have that right now, right? So yeah, that's all I can.
It's like if you're in a balcony in an apartment, create a habitat there for the birds which can come to you, for the insects which can come into those plants. If you're you know, 2 suburbs away and you've got possums around, you're in their place. Give them a place to hang. Don't think that they're the pest. They're not the pest.
They're not.
They're not.
They're actually not.
No, we're the pests.
Only in New Zealand.
I apologise for the New Zealand Department of Conservation. Yeah, I don't agree with their culling policies, but you know, here you're much nicer to your possums, thank goodness.
But if all these little habitats were everywhere, all of a sudden we end up with one big habitat again. And people can have one in their own yard. It's everywhere that we can all be doing it, but
Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming in today and with our subject of re-indigenising ecology. And Darryn McKenny, thank you so much for your words of wisdom. And Rewa, Wright, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Ruli, the visuals have been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Very good, great work, Ruli.
Yeah, from all of us here at Newcastle University, I just want to say thanks very much for being part of the CQC for the very first time.